All right, so here is the review for assessment number 6. In this first problem, we have to look at the system of equations. Each of these systems has a parabola and a line, and so we have to tell where they intersect. Well, this first one right here, they do not intersect at all, so there is no solution. Remember, when you have two graphs on one picture, you want to know where they cross each other. So this one here, I mean, the equations are given to you if you want to check in your calculator, but really I'm just looking for where they intersect. A quick inspection, that is at the point 4, -5. So 4, -5, you read it as a point. And over here in the last one, I got this first one is -3, 4. And the next one is at 1, 0. Okay. All right, so moving on. So in this problem, it asks for, you have a ball thrown up from an initial height of 6 feet. So you're starting this thing at 6 feet, and then you have these other data points. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in on the calculator. I'm going to show you this one all the way through, and then the rest of them I will go a little faster and pause the video. So in this, remember to this data into your calculator, you're going to press the stat button. You're going to do number 1, edit. If there's already some numbers in there, you go to the top and you press clear and enter. So we will not tell you the directions during the test. You have to know what to do and what buttons to press. All right, I'd like to get a picture of what's going on. So remember, you can go to y equals, go up to the top and press enter to turn the plot on. And I had some other stuff in here earlier, so I'm going to clear that out. So to see a picture of what's going on, I want to zoom and I want to go to number 9. Number 9 is zoom stat. And so if you do number 9, what the calculator will do will zoom in on these numbers that you've put in there and give me a graph. So I can kind of clearly see that this is a parabolic shape, so it's not a line, it's a parabola. So, you know, I just wanted a little picture here, here, here. Only had 4 points, right? Okay, so I'm going to choose a quadratic regression. So I already have my data in there. So to get an equation for what's going on here, I press stat, go over to calculate, and I would choose number 5, quadratic. All right, I would go down to store, do alpha trace and pick y1 and go to calculate. All right, and there is a nice little equation, r squared is 1. All right, so I'm going to steal this here so I can use it. Now the question does say, oops, to write your answer with, instead of using x, use t squared. All right, so if I want to use t squared instead of t's instead of x's, that's just because this is given in time. So h of t equals -16 t squared instead of this x right here, plus 32 t plus 6. And the r squared is 1. And then the next question asks what's happening after 2 seconds. So go back to my calculator. So I want to do alpha trace, grab y1 because the equation's in there, and then put in 2 seconds. And it'll be at a height of 6 feet. I think it was in feet, yeah. All right, so basically where it started. All right, number 3. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be putting in 1, 2, 3, 2, and 4, 5. All right, it asks for a parabola, so I would do a quadratic regression. All right, I have my numbers in there. Stat calculate, number 5. And I see it's not really asking me to do anything with this graph or this equation, so I'm just going to go down to calculate, and I don't need to store it. All right, so it'll be 1x squared minus 4x plus 5. And you can put a 1 here if you really want to. All right, moving on. Next page here. Okay, find the solution to the system of equations using graphing. So we're going to graph it on the calculator. So to graph these on the calculator, I have to solve for y. So I see this y here is nice and positive, so I'm just going to leave him there and move everything to the other side. So this is going to move over, that's going to move over, that's going to move over. So it's going to get me a new equation of -2x squared, because it changes signs, plus 17x minus 28. And the second equation, same thing. I'm going to move 3x over, so it's positive 3x, and the 4 moves over, so minus 4. So I'm going to graph these two equations in my y equals. Also going to turn off my plot so I don't have that bothering me. And then 3x minus 4. Now, if I go to the graph, remember it's zoomed in for the last one. So if I go to the graph right now, I can't really see anything. So remember what you have to do is you have to go back to your normal picture, and that would be zoom number 6, standard. So press that, and then I start to see the equations, the parabola, and then the line coming through. I think they are crossing twice, so I'm going to do second trace, number 5, and hit enter 3 times. So one of them's crossing at 3, 5. And then they're crossing again a little higher than that. So second trace, or 5. Move my cursor up. So 3, 5 was the first one. Press enter 3 times, and 4, 8. So 3, 5, and 4, 8. What are the y-coordinates of the solutions? Let's say the y-coordinates are 5 and 8. I want to use parentheses because that looks like a point. So the parabola was like that. The line was coming through like this, and so it was crossing twice. It was just kind of really a little bit hard to tell, but they were. All right, the next two problems we're going to do by hand. So by hand means do substitution or linear combinations, whatever your teacher taught you, whatever I always told the kids to solve for y and then set them equal to each other. So in this first equation, I'm going to move this y over to the other side and then put the negative 13 back to become positive 13. So I got x squared plus 9x plus 13. I think that's easier. On this next one, I'm just going to move these to the other side. So I got y equals 3x plus 4. I didn't want to move the y over because it would become negative y, which I don't want. All right, so I'm going to set these two things equal to each other. I got x squared plus 9x plus 13 equals 3x plus 4. We're doing this by hand. We are not graphing these on the calculator. So I'm going to take away 3x from both sides and take away 4. So I got x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. I want to have the x squared positive, so I can go ahead and factor. When I factor, I get 3 and 3 make 9, and also 6, both positive. So I only get one answer from this, x equals negative 3. So these things must intersect just one time. So negative 3. And so I have to go back to either of these problems and plug in negative 3. So I'm going to use this one. So when x is negative 3, the y is 3 times negative 3 plus 4. So my y value is negative 9 plus 4. So my y is negative 5. So it says, what are the x-coordinates of the solution? I would say negative 3. All right, going down here, solving this one by hand. This is already solved for y, so that's good. I'm going to move this 16x over to the middle. So it'd be 2y equals 2x squared minus 16x plus 20. Then I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I get y equals x squared minus 8x plus 10. So here's my two equations. Solve for y here and here. I'm going to set them equal to each other. So I get 2x minus 6 equals x squared minus 8x plus 10. So I'm going to be moving everything over to the right because I want my x squared over there to be positive. So I'm going to be minus 2x. I'm going to add 6. So I got x squared minus 10x plus 16. So when I factor this, or you could use quadratic formula, but this factoring is not difficult. I need minus 8 and minus 2 to make 16 and also negative 10. So my answers are 8 and 2. So remember, these are the beginnings of your points. 8 is the beginning of one, 2 is the other. All right, so if x equals 8, I'm going to plug it into this problem. 2 times 8 minus 6, that'd be 16 minus 6, that'd be 10. So the y value is 10. And then when x equals 2, same thing, 2 times 2 minus 6, so 4 minus 6 is negative 2. All right, so that is by hand. All right, moving on to the last page here. These are some old problems. I'm going to do these out, but I'm also going to show you on the calculator. So here, I would keep the 6i. I'd multi-distribute here, so plus 6i minus 12i squared. So that's 12i minus 12i squared. So I squared, remember, is negative 1. So that's 12i minus 12 times negative 1. So that's 12i plus 12. All right. Here, 5 minus 2i squared, so it would be easier to write that twice and FOIL it. So I get 25 minus 4i, I'm sorry, minus 10i another minus 10i, and then plus 4i squared. Well, that would be 25 minus 20i. Remember, I squared is negative 1, so this plus 4i squared turns into negative 4, because it's 4 times negative 1. So I get 21 minus 20i. All right, letter C. I got negative 6 plus I. Then distribute the negatives to negative 7i plus 4. So I get negative 2 for the negative 6 plus 4, and then minus 6i. All right, and the last one, I to the 40th. Well, 4 goes into 40 perfectly. So this is like having I to the 4th 10 times. Like 4 times 10 is 40. So that's basically like having 1 to the 10th, which is 1. The answer to that is 1, because 40 is a multiple of 4. All right, so I'll show you real quick with just like 1 or 2 of these. You can just put them right into the calculator the way you see them. All right, so remember that the I button is underneath the decimal key, so I'll do letter B. So if I had 5 minus 2i squared, just type it right in, and there's the answer. Remember, when you're doing I to the 40th, you want to do math, go over to number, go down to I part, and then type in your I to the 40th power, and it will produce your answer. All right, the rest of these are some review problems as well. If I'm going to solve this by factoring, I got to bring these guys over to the other side. So I got 5x squared minus 36x plus 7. So when I factor, I get 5x and x. I'll put the 7 and the 1 here. That way I have 35 and 1, and I can make 36 if they're both negative. So remember, I'm supposed to produce answers. My answers are 1/5 and 7. So a little solution set, 1/5 and 7. Those are the zeros of these two factors. All right, number 9, solve by square roots. So if I'm going to do square roots, that means I have to get the x squared alone. So I'm going to take away 30, get 2x squared equals negative 24, divide by 2, x squared equals negative 12. I'm about to do the square root of 12, so let me break that down. 6 and 2, 3 and 2. So I got a pair of 2's. So when I do my square root, I will get x equals plus or minus. There is an I, so I'm going to pull out an I and have radical 12. Well, like we discovered over here, I get 2 radical 3. So my answer is plus or minus 2i radical 3. All right, number 10, an old question. Remember, this is an absolute value equation. Your basic absolute value looks like this, and it has a graph that's right in the center. All right, so my equation would be the absolute value. This thing is moved to the right 2 and up 3. So right 2 would be minus 2, up 3 would be plus 3, and it's upside down, and there's a reflection, so I'll put a negative sign. The solutions, just like with anything, those are the x-intercepts. So I will put negative 1, 0, and also, what is that, 5, 0. All right, last question here. So I'm going to solve with the quadratic formula. So let's see, my a is 2, my b is negative 8, my c is negative 19. So my quadratic formula is sitting right over here. So I have negative of a negative 8, so that would be 8 plus or minus the square root b squared, so it would be 64 minus 4 times a is 2 and c is negative 19 over 2 times negative 8. No, 2 times 2, sorry, 4. All right, so I'm going to go grab my calculator and figure out the discriminant, which is the part underneath the radical. So I need 64 minus 4 times 2 times negative 19. All right, so 216. All right, 216. So I got to break that down. So 216, let's see, that's 108 times 2. 108 is 54 times 2. 54, let's see, is like 9 times 6. So I get 3 and 3. And 3 and 2. So I'm going to look at that. I got a pair of 2's, I got a pair of 3's, and so 2 times 3 is 6. So for the radical 216, I'm going to be bringing a 6 out, and look at this right here, I'm going to leave a 6 inside. So this turns into 8 plus or minus 6 radical 6 over 4. Now, these three numbers here, this one, and this one, all divide by 2. So for my final answer, I will do that. So I will get 4 plus or minus 3 radical 6 over 2. And that is my final answer. All right, I'll see you in class. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.